Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh, and I'm your host. I always love starting this podcast by saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel so very blessed with this podcast, all the people it reaches. My objective when I started was to simplify spirituality and guide people on their journey. And just the number of messages we get on a weekly basis shows that we're clearly doing that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel incredibly blessed, feel incredibly supported. So thank you. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. I love what I get to do. I get to guide people to release their program, to become their authentic and beautiful selves. I feel like we're being pushed more and more to do that right now. And, I love I get to do that and do that through the podcast, do that through spiritual mentoring, do that through Akashic record reading. In whatever way I know I'm kind of doing what I'm here to do, and I know there's more to come, but I feel so very blessed. So thank you for everyone that supported me. And this podcast wouldn't be where it is today without my beautiful co-host introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire and published author, Stacey Brown. Stace, over to you.
It's so good to be here for another episode. I'm deeply grateful for this podcast and the time that we have to pour into our audience. So thank you, friends, for listening. My name is Stacey. I'm an intuitive. I do readings for people from around the world. I'm also an Akashic record reader. I am a spiritual coach and mentor. And I recently published my first book, Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender. It's available on Amazon and Audible. Really looking forward to another beautiful episode.
Yay, so am I. I love this space. It's just one of my favorite things to do. I always say that we don't script any of this. We don't. A lot of times we don't even plan the topic. We just feel what the energy is like at the moment, and we decide accordingly. And that's exactly what we've done today. We've been getting a lot of the questions recently about our spirit guides going quiet. Why do they go silent? And really navigating that void, and that's really what we're going to be talking about today. And it's interesting. I can really relate. Many times, even recently, I felt like my guides go quiet, and it's weird, right? I mean, maybe there's people listening thinking, well, I don't really have guides. I don't really hear them. I guess to answer that part first, we all have guides, and we have to build a muscle to hear them, right? It starts with trusting our intuition and building from there. And also recognizing that however your guides connect with you is unique to you. So some people will see, some people will hear, some people will feel. It depends, kind of which one resonates, and they evolve and change over time. So however you connect, however you feel, is perfect for you. I've had so many conversations where people get frustrated because they can't see. Not all of us are meant to. And over time, who knows? But always start by, what do you feel? What's your intuition telling you? If you're not feeling a connection with your guides, obviously if you are, then go with what you're already receiving. But if you don't feel like you're getting anything, then trust your intuition. And if you have a question you want to ask, just ask the question and trust the first thing that comes through. Because a lot of the time, the messages from our guides are light. They're not as loud as from our ego. And what typically happens is the message comes through first, and then your ego kicks in, and the ego is really loud. If you start trusting your intuition, then that builds over time. So I guess that's the first point. The second thing is really understanding the silence. And this is just my belief. I don't believe that our guides go anywhere. I don't believe they go silent. It's just when we're going through something in life that's really emotional, maybe intense, maybe there's an intense rebirth or a shift. It's that emotion that we're going through. It's that humanness that we're going through that causes this sort of disconnect. And also, we're a soul having a human experience. And so if we've got to have the human experience, sometimes that feeling of loneliness, that feeling of not feeling our energies and vibrations around us is part of it. So, and this really, if they're going quiet, there is a difference between absence and integration. Integration means that, you've been through some really heavy changes, and you're really getting to know this new version of you, and maybe you have new guides coming in. Absence is that feeling when you're so emotional, where you are just and you're not really present, and you're going through something so intense. But actually, that is a time when they're probably even more present. But maybe it's also time for you to even more trust your soul, trust your intuition, and trust in divine timing. Because sometimes we ask a question and we get frustrated because the answer doesn't come straight away. But again, there's divine timing, right? Sometimes we need to go through something to get the answers. Also, sometimes the way we receive messages change. So it's so multifaceted. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. So Stacey, I'd love to hear from you in terms of, when we talk about spirit guides and going silent and navigating the void. I know we've talked about this quite often because I've recently been going through that. How about you? I mean, when was the last time you felt your guides went quiet? And how did that feel for you?
It's interesting because I have talked a lot about my journey coming to the UK and being here in this environment and not knowing what's next. And this is a time where I would say I feel like my guides are really quiet, but I also recognize that there's a lot of emotion involved in what I'm experiencing right now. I'm in a very long distance relationship and I have children in the US and there's this divide. And it is an extremely emotional time because I'm loving being here and I'm loving the experience and um, day-to-day life here is really beautiful. I have found a partner that I have so much in common with, even though our upbringings are very different. And I feel like I'm lost as to what's next. I fly back to the States in April, and I literally have no idea what's happening beyond there. And I feel like I've asked, I've asked my guides, like, what's next? And I have yet to get an answer. And sometimes that can be really frustrating when we have this urgency about us that we're longing to know what's next and we have no idea. And it can be so challenging to feel like we're in the abyss. Like this is a beautiful season, but what comes after it? And I think that it's not about our guides necessarily going quiet. I think sometimes our emotions override the messages and can make it hard to hear. And then I also feel that sometimes it's about being present instead of anticipating what's coming next. And a lot of us want to know 20 steps ahead. I mean, by nature, we just want to know, okay, what's going to happen after this? And then what's next after that? And we're not necessarily meant to know all of those steps. We're meant to take one step at a time and move forward with that step, trusting that we're going to be guided and protected. And I think this has come up before, and I'll say it again. It's a trust fall. It's trusting that we will have the answers when we're meant to. Not necessarily when we want them to come through, but when we're meant to have them come through.
And then that's the interesting time. The interesting thing about this time is it really does feel like, because the planet is going through such a shift and we're all going through such a shift, that long-term planning and kind of giving us a view as to what's going to come long-term isn't something a lot of us are getting, because the shift is so profound. They can only show us glimpses. So accepting that we're not meant to kind of get a longer-term view right now, and accepting that all we can do is focus on this moment and focus on what's next. And when we do that, actually the moment after becomes even more amazing. And taking that trustful, it really is which is why this topic felt so appropriate. It really does feel like it's time, right? It's time for us to truly trust. And we've done so much work. I mean, you think about 2024 and even before that lockdown, we've done so much healing and so many rebirths, so much. And I know there's an energy, and I relate for sure. It's like, well, when is this intensity going to stop? And I don't know if I can give you a time frame. It just feels like the next couple of years are going to be intense for the planet. And this feeling of the void is an interesting time, but I do feel like we're ready for it. I do feel um, understanding the environment, understanding what's happening around us is such a big part of it. Because sometimes when our guys go quiet in this silence and not knowing what's coming next, is scary. I mean, Stacey just said, she's here for a couple of months. She knows what the next couple of months holds, but what's coming after that? And it is that abyss, that void, which is scary and exciting. But really, for me, that's the first thing, is being honest with yourself. How do you feel about this period? How do you feel about this? Maybe if your guys are more silent than usual, do you feel abandoned? Do you feel frustrated? Is there doubt? How does your ego react? Maybe your ego's excited. And really trusting whatever's coming next. Stacey just said it's a trustful, for her in April. For me right now, I have been periods, it's kind of shifting now, but certainly through January, I felt disconnected from my guides. It was such a heavy, intense month. Luckily, I've experienced it before, so I sat with it and I was present with it. And was it frustrating? Yes. I still opened the Akashic records. I felt them around me. I felt energy, but the messages weren't coming through as clearly as before. And trusting in the moment and trusting that whatever's happening is happening for you is a really important part of this. But again, and I feel like we say this on every single episode, so it's so important for any spiritual journey is to have strong self-care. Because so many of us want to bypass the work, right? Bypass the healing. Give me a meditation, give me a course or whatever, and I'll embrace that. But you've still got to have strong self-care. You've still got to have, time in nature, really doing grounding practices. And actually, we can do a grounding at the end, but really do some grounding practice to really anchor yourself, to feel connected to nature. Just depending on the weather, obviously, if you can, lie down on the grass and feel connected. Walk barefoot. But doing something that grounds you is really important. Kind of sitting in meditation and changing your orbit, trying something different. But for me, time in silence, time in meditation, realigning, recalibrating, listening to me. For me, okay, if my guides are quiet, maybe it's time to truly trust me. Maybe it's time to listen to my soul. But journaling, breath work, doing something physical, movement, all of that is so foundational in any topic we talk about on this podcast. It'll keep coming up, and I don't apologize because it's so foundational. There is sometimes your journey accelerates, but actually that's just a perception. It accelerates because you've done so much work before. So doing the foundational, having a strong self-care is important in anything we do. How does that feel for you, Stace?
It's interesting because I had kind of fallen away from going to the gym and getting exercise, but I really enjoy running. And the last couple of days, I've gone back to the gym and I've left my headphones at home and I've just allowed myself to be in the space on the treadmill with the rhythm of my feet hitting the surface and allow myself that kind of introspective meditative time. And it has been so good for me to have that time, not just for the physical exercise, but for the quiet and the peace that comes during that time. And I feel like that's so important because there's so much noise in the world right now. And it can be really hard to listen to our guides and listen to our inner voice when we have all of this noise around us. And so being really intentional about what you do with your time, I feel is super important. Giving yourself the space to say, okay, I am going to meditate and spend some time with myself and with my angels and guides. Um, we're really passionate about the Akashic records, opening up the records and sitting in that space and allowing yourself the time to process whatever comes through is so important. And I really believe that for so many of us, that noise of the outside world overrides our inner voice. So it's not that necessarily our guides are going quiet, it's that we're in a state of chaos, or the noise of the outside world is louder than that whisper that we get with our guides. And I know for me, when I'm in tune and I'm dialed in, it's a space of whispers, and it's subtle, and it's not the loud noise of the outside world. And yet, so many of us have so much coming at us in a day that we don't take the time to get still with ourselves. And I feel like that's so important, because most times our guides are quiet and subtle, and we might feel the message as opposed to hearing the message. We might see signs. And if we're not paying attention and we don't spend that time to get quiet, we might miss it.
Isn't that interesting in terms of feeling like we might miss something? I don't believe we miss anything. What happens is our guides want to give us a message. Maybe the universe wants to give us a message, and a lot of the time the messages may start subtly. But actually, if they're important messages, if you miss the subtle messages, then you start to get pushes, and you get shoves, and you get nudges. That's why the illnesses and stuff come through. It's just, but it's that feeling of missing something. Knowing that, listen to podcasts like this, and knowing that the planet is going through a shift, and knowing that actually everybody's going through something, and it's part of a collective shift, sometimes helps. Not always, because again, I can relate. It's just just the feeling of frustration, right? This is where having that honest conversation is really important. But doing the ground, everything we talked about, but understanding that nothing is missing, and whatever's for you will find you, and there's a reason. There's lessons hidden in the void. Sometimes, and I know I've done it, we start to get so reliant on our guides and the messages and the nudges, and we got to be careful that we don't stop trusting ourselves. What's your soul telling you? Just trusting and really disconnecting. I mean, Stacey was talking about the noise, right? What's disconnecting between your ego, the emotional voice, and your intuition? That's a skill too. And the transformation of whatever we're going through, it really, when we become still, and we just stop and be present, that's when true transformation occurs. So if you listen to this and your life is really busy, but you feel disconnected, then my question and challenge to yourself is really to have an honest conversation with yourself. Are you manifesting busyness and craziness in your world because there's something happening inside you that you need to heal? Because sometimes that stillness it's always powerful, but sometimes it scares us, because then we have to face ourselves. So the void, if you're feeling the void, if you're feeling disconnected, actually is really a powerful space. They say it's always darkest before the dawn and all the rest of it. I feel like when you're going through this void, it means you're going through a breakthrough. And how often, when we're so close to the finishing line, do we give up? And there's such a big difference between, if you look at racing. Stacey was talking about running. Look at the 100 meters race, and it's just difference of split second, right? In terms of winning or coming third or whatever. It's that when you're close to a transformation, when you're going through a rebirth, that is when you feel the void, the disconnect even more. But actually, I believe that's actually when we've been held in so much more. I feel like, we're getting more support from the universe, but it just comes in different ways. A lot of the time, it's our expectations of what the messages look like. It's our expectations of how our guides talk to us. And what if that's all changing? Stacey, can you describe a time when you felt the void and felt disconnected, and kind of when you got to the other side and how that felt?
I'm almost scared to admit that it's happened to me on a several experience basis. I've gone through the heartbreak of ending a marriage and feeling disconnected from my partner, which then made me feel disconnected from myself. And I had to reconnect with myself and what my vision was for my life. And, I wouldn't say I feel disconnected right now. I just feel very uncertain. And it's a scary place to be when you feel like you don't know what's coming next. I'm a planner by nature. Like, I like to know what's coming and be prepared for it. And I'm constantly looking at my calendar and, okay, what do I have here and what's happening at this time? And I think a lot of that comes from being a mom and trying to be organized with my kids' various schedules and keeping up on juggling that and work. And so I think I'm just used to feeling in control. And this is a season where I don't feel in control. I feel like I am trusting that something is coming next, even though I'm uncertain of what it is. And I feel like my guides, if they're talking to me right now, they're whispering and I need to turn the volume up. And I think a lot of us, don't know how to do that. And in a world where we keep so busy, I think we think that the way to access that information is through busyness. If I do this, then I'll get the answer. If I go here, then I'm going to figure it out. But I believe when we're in a space where we're uncertain of what's coming next, or we feel like we aren't hearing our guides, I believe that's a sign that we actually need to stop doing what we're doing and we've got to get still. And we can do that in a variety of ways. We talk about this all the time on the podcast. We can meditate and spend time in silence, whether that's in nature or it's not. It depends on the time of year. But I believe that the very thing that we need to do is the thing that we avoid. And that is to get still, to get quiet with ourselves, and to take that time, even if it's uncomfortable, which usually it is, right? When we don't hear our guides, we're usually in a space of being extremely uncomfortable. And a lot of times with that discomfort comes urgency of, I just need the answer right now. Like, I just need to know. I need to know the answer. But it doesn't necessarily come that way. And in that space, in the world, we're taught to take action, right? We're taught you do something, you actively do something to pursue getting an answer. But I don't believe that that's the way that our guides work. I believe that when we're in that space, what our guides really want us to know is you've got to get quiet with yourself in order to hear the messages. And then I think there's another part to this. I think the other part to this is we might be receiving messages and we don't like the answer. So sometimes I would say it's not that our guides are getting quiet, but that we're resistant to what they're telling us. And that can be an interesting space to be in as well. So I would ask yourself, are you really not hearing from your guides? Or are you hearing from your guides and not liking the answer? Because that's resistance to whatever is meant to be, right? Like for me right now, in this season of unknown, I feel like my guides are speaking to me, and what they're saying to me is, Stacey, you need to be present in this moment. Not thinking 20 steps ahead, but being present in what's happening right now. And you've got to trust us that we have your back and that you might not know what's coming next, but we do, and we've got you covered. And that can be a hard space to be in when you're a control freak like me. I like knowing what's next. I like to be prepared. And in this season, I feel like my guides are saying, no, Stacey, that's not what this is. This is you trusting that we've got you, no matter what the outcome is, and that you're protected and you're loved and supported. And you need to be present. You need to be present in the now. And if I'm not present, then I'm missing the beauty of this moment. And maybe sometimes we're just not getting the answers that we want. And so we're resistant to it. So I would ask you, is it really that they're being quiet? Or is it that you're resisting what they're telling you?
Such a powerful share. And, knowing that whatever you're going through is for you is kind of how I just summarized Stacey's share. It's that kind of, it's for a reason. The void is serving you, and your answers will come whenever you're ready. And as Stacey said, maybe you're already getting the answers. Maybe you already know the healing that you need to do, and you're running away from it. This is why, kind of the overriding message of this podcast is to really be present and to listen to you, and to know that everything's been planned. Everything you're going through is part of your journey. It's part of why you're here. It's part of exactly what you're meant to go through. And there's so much power in the energy right now. There's so much power, but it makes us feel uncomfortable because we get used to things, right? Humans by nature don't like change. And this period is making us really feel uncomfortable. But it's needed because it's part of the shift. And are you willing to trust? Are you willing to kind of have those moments of silence and really have honest conversation with yourself? Are you willing to do the inner child healing? Are you willing to truly work on yourself? And the other thing to bear in mind right now is if you listen to this podcast, know that you're not on your own. You're not going through this on your own. People may not be able to, they may not have the same words as you, be going through the exact same thing, but there's similarities. So look for communities, look for spaces that can hold your space. I mean, me and Stacey have a monthly Zoom call. It's 90 minutes, it's free. We talk about the current energy. We do a guided meditation, normally around the full moon. We open the Akashic Record, share a group message. It's a beautiful healing space, but look for communities that make sense. Maybe look for a mentor. I mean, me and Stacey have a beautiful mentorship program. Over 3 months, we guide you to be your authentic self. We've just started a phase 2, which guides you to become a spiritual mentor. So if that's something you want to do, then reach out, book a free discovery call. Over 6 months, we'll guide you to create your own mentorship program, whatever that looks like. But the first 3 months is all about you and working on you. The next 3 months is really about your gifts and how are you going to shine your light? But just remember that like I said, this phase is for you. You're going through a rebirth. You're going through one of the biggest shifts you've ever been through as a soul, not even just as a human. So your soul's been working at this time, this period, and preparing for lifetimes. So that fear you feel, that uncertainty you feel in your heart, in your stomach, is because there's a part of you that recognizes there's so much change coming. There's such a big shift coming. And it's also important to ask, well, hold on, this feeling of uncomfortableness I'm feeling, is it mine or is it coming from the planet? Because sometimes you'll feel the shift that's happening on the planet. And a lot of the times, especially now, it's both. You're feeling what's happening on the planet, but you're also feeling what's happening inside you. So it's important to kind of listen to you, have that honest conversation with you. Kind of, what are your lessons here? What are you running away from? It's that honest conversation with yourself, because we all have four bodies, right? And I know for me, I love the spiritual stuff. I love kind of floating around and visiting other realms, but I also know now that I've got to make sure I look after the vessel. I've got to make sure I look after the human. Make sure that I look after the mental side, the ego side, and all four bodies need working, right? They all need that, and it's important that you recognize that, that you do nurture all four of your bodies. So I've recognized that, I love the spiritual body. I love that with that side of stuff, but I can't neglect the other parts. So again, check in with yourself. The beautiful thing we always recommend is check with your four bodies. Rate yourself 0 to 10. Where do you feel physically? That's your physical body. Where do you feel mentally? And mentally is all about the brain, your ego. Again, rate yourself 0 to 10. How do you feel emotionally? And that's all about how do you feel about the love inside you and around you? And how do you feel spiritually? Your connection to source. And it's not about being all tens. It's about really checking with yourself and realizing the area that needs work. Because also you got to recognize that things are shifting. So maybe the guidance you're receiving is coming in unexpected ways. Maybe it's through a podcast. Maybe it's through your dreams. Maybe it's through synchronicities or that gut feeling. Maybe it's through something you watch on TV or a conversation you have. Maybe it's joining different communities and having that. But, the silence is serving you, I guess, is a point. And, recognizing that this could be a test, right? It could be a lesson that you're going through. For example, for me, I know that one of my lessons in this lifetime is patience. I think Stacey would probably agree that's one of hers too, but I know that patience isn't one of my strengths. I don't apologize for it, but I know in certain areas I've got to be patient, and I've worked on that. But other times I've got to keep going. I've got to keep, and even if, like, for example, I don't feel connected to my guides, I know I've got to still keep going and showing up, right? Showing up, sharing whatever message I feel is right, showing up for me in terms of the self-care. It's at times when you feel disconnected, actually, you need to show up for you even more. And be open to things changing. Be open to receiving messages differently. What are you dreaming about? Well, what are you consistently getting? Are you open to new forms of spiritual communication? We stay through this time. How are things evolved for you? Are you receiving messages differently? I know for me, I feel so blessed with the Akashic Records. I get so many messages through when I'm healing for somebody else. And I've done that work for me, so I know that whatever I'm doing is a co-creation. So I guess that's a good message for our listeners too. If you are holding space for somebody else, it's a co-creation. There's something there for you too. It's never just a one-way street. So if you are a healer in some kind of way, then make sure when you're healing others, you're listening to your own messages too. Universe, I really feel like our guides have jokes. They love to keep us on our toes. So be open to magic in coming so many different ways. How's that lesson been for you, Stace? The shifting and the messages maybe coming in different forms.
I absolutely think the messages are coming in different forms. And I think we have to be adaptable to those forms of communication changing and shifting. For me, one of the ways that I receive messages now is through writing, and I'm passionate about journaling. I believe a lot of us are channel writers, and we don't realize it if we haven't tapped into it. But for me, there's something very powerful about writing and sitting and allowing my thoughts to flow. I also receive things through the Akashic Records. And I talked about stillness earlier. That space where we tune out the outside noise and allow ourselves to be introspective is a space where I receive messages as well. But I also believe that I'm stubborn. And when I don't receive the messages the way I want to receive them, I tend to think I'm not receiving them. But I think a lot of times I am. I'm just resistant to the way that they're coming through. And I'm sure that there are people listening who can relate to that, where we have expectations and we want things to be a certain way. And when it's not, we shut down, right? Like we shut down and say, oh, well, I'm not receiving messages. But maybe it's that we're not open to the way they're coming through. And I think sometimes it's also about us being open to trying new things. I had no idea what Akashic Records even were a couple years ago. I had no idea. And when I was introduced to that modality, it opened me up to a new way of receiving messages. And so, my friends, if you're listening right now, my question to you is, do you need to be open to new ways of communicating with your guides? Do you need to find different avenues to receive messages? Maybe you're somebody who's relied heavily on meditation and you're feeling some resistance with meditation. Well, we train people on a regular basis how to navigate the Akashic Records. Maybe that's something that you need assistance with and want to learn the process of doing so that you have a new way of communicating. Maybe you're somebody who has never picked up a journal before. Maybe it's time to start writing and seeing what comes out on the paper. But I think that we have to be open to the messages coming through in different ways. And I think if we just have one way of doing things, we can get frustrated when we don't get answers in that way. But I really feel like the more tools you have in your toolbox, the better equipped you are to receive the messages. And that's what takes work and commitment, is saying, what I'm doing isn't working. I need to try something new, and being open to that. And I remember hearing about Akashic Records and thinking, oh, that's not for me. And then the more exposure I had, the more connected I felt. And it was a totally different form of connection than what I'd ever experienced before. So, my friends, I think this is about being open to understanding that the modalities that have worked for you in the past might be shifting and changing as you're shifting and changing. And what you originally did to connect might not always be the only way to connect. That maybe it's time to be open to something new.
Such, again, a powerful share, being open to something new. And that's the other part of this, is you are shifting, you are going through a rebirth. So, definition of insanity is keep trying the same thing, expect a different set of results, as Einstein would say. And, this period is also so much about grief. Maybe you lost a loved one, or maybe you're grieving your old self. You've gone through a rebirth, and Stacey's point is so valuable, so powerful, right? It's that, are you trying something different? Are you trying something different in terms of connecting with your guides? Because there's definitely a lesson here for you, right? I mean, if I go through when I've felt this period, when I felt really kind of disconnected, it was because a lot of it was to do with so much of what we talked about today, trying, not having a strong self-care routine, really my checking with my expectations, and really kind of riding the wave. Because I really strongly believe everything that happens to me is serving me in some kind of way. And I know that's a trigger sometimes, because if you're going through something intense, you're like, well, how is this serving me? So if you can, go back to the last time you felt this kind of void, this kind of disconnect. What happened? What did you learn from it? Maybe try and remember what did you do? Maybe you need to try and do the same thing. But I would encourage you to try something different. Maybe try a different meditation, walk in nature in a different space. But this period, if you are feeling the void, is serving you. It really is time to embrace the unknown with confidence. Know this period that the biggest thing is knowing and accepting that you chose to be here, knowing that nothing's missing, trusting that whatever's for you will find you. Embrace this period as much as possible with confidence and knowing that you're going to get through it. This too shall pass. What if you use the spiritual quiet periods where you don't feel your guides as much for deep self-reflection? What are your lessons here? Having that honest conversation with yourself. And have you integrated everything you've learned? Are you truly going through this rebirth? Are you embracing this new version of you? How do you feel about you? How do you feel about everything you've been through? I can tell you that I feel like I'm still going through the shift. I feel like I've been through the rebirth, and getting to know this new version of me, kind of even the work I'm doing with clients and the one-to-one, the mentorship, I can feel such a shift. But it's not. I'm not getting stuck in. Oh, I'm not getting the messages in the same sort of way. I'm really trying to be open to getting the messages come in different forms, and friendships like my connection with Stacey has really helped. And but embracing this version of you and knowing that you're going through such a big shift, for me, is really important. And embracing that feeling of being uncomfortable. So Stacey, you can really relate to that feeling of being uncomfortable. You talked about it earlier in terms of what's going for you. What else? Have you got any other advice in terms of how you're, the physical activity you talked about, the trying different things, but anything else you would advise our listeners in terms of embracing that feeling of the unknown, that feeling of being uncomfortable, that feeling of the void?
Acceptance. I think acceptance is huge. Accepting where you are and being okay with it is a massive part of this. I believe that wherever we are is where we are meant to be. And all of us have successfully navigated every twist and turn that we've faced thus far, or we wouldn't be here right now. Somehow, the universe, our guides, have provided for us in the seasons where we didn't know what was coming next. But I believe if you're in a season of unknowing and you're feeling uncomfortable, there's got to be a radical acceptance that this is where you're meant to be, and that exactly what is meant to be unfolding is unfolding. And I think that's where a lot of the resistance comes from, is the expectation that things should look a certain way, when really what we need is acceptance of the way that they are.
That's powerful. I should be on a t-shirt somewhere. Acceptance is the way that we are. It is, it's so true. This is such a period of shifting, and it is our expectations and our frustration, and maybe that life hasn't turned out the way you expected it to. The stages of healing for me, the first stage is always awareness. How do you become aware? We've talked about in this episode, the questions you ask yourself helps you to become aware. Then is always acceptance. And then it's falling in love with you. Such powerful, powerful words. Accepting where you are today, knowing that nothing's missing, is so powerful. And as we get to the close out of this episode, A lot of things we've talked about in this episode is so try something different. Accept who you are. Know that whatever you're going through is serving you in some kind of way and nothing is missing. I really don't believe our guides go anywhere. So the silence is not their absence. It's preparing you. It's preparing you for whatever's coming next. And yet, trust, surrender, and lean into your own light and trust in your own journey. Know that you're here for something. And it's like, I imagine so many people listening to this episode probably thinking, well, maybe they're not talking to me. They're talking to somebody else because I'm different. 100% you're different. I honor you for that. But also, you're still going through a human experience. So having that honest conversation with yourself, accepting who you are, having strong self-care, trusting in you, trusting in your journey. What is your self-talk like? And just kind of, because also when you do that self-care, your self-talk changes. You start to trust you. You can actually hear your messages so much better. And recognize when your guides seem silent, actually for me, my soul was speaking louder. So what is your soul saying to you today? Are you listening? What is that conversation that that you need to have with yourself? Stacey, I'm going to ask you, right? Any final thoughts? I'm feeling that we should finish with the grounding, so I'll finish with the grounding. We've mentioned so many services we offer. If something resonates with you, reach out. Akashic training, maybe you want a reading. Also, as we said, the thing that we're just working on right now is a spiritual mentorship program, i.e. to become a spiritual mentor. You need to go through phase 1 of spiritual mentorship, but phase 2 is really kind of guiding you to create your own spiritual mentorship program. If you want to find out more, book a free discovery call. I will finish with the grounding, but Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you to share any wisdom, any journal prompts, and we'll finish with the grounding. Over to you.
I would just encourage our listeners to take some time with yourself in whatever way feels right and allow yourself the space to connect, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through the Akashic records, whether it's through journaling. Taking that time to allow yourself to go deep and really accept where you are and be open to whatever messages come through. I don't necessarily have journal prompts. I would encourage you to sit down and, well, maybe I do have a journal prompt. Ask yourself, what do you think is missing? And what do you feel your guides are trying to convey to you? So thinking and feeling are two different things, but allow yourself that space to process whatever comes through. And when you don't know where to turn, maybe it's time to get support. And I think oftentimes we're resistant to that as well, because by nature, we want to figure it out ourselves, right? We want to do things on our own. Maybe you're not meant to navigate this season on your own. Maybe you're meant to do it with support. And that support might look like reaching out to Nimesh and I and booking a free discovery call. That might look like reaching out to a close friend and having coffee and having a conversation. It might look like leaning into family members. Whatever it is, sometimes you're not meant to do things on your own. You're meant to do it with support. And the most brave thing you can do is ask for help when you don't know what to do. So my friends, if you're in a season where you don't know what to do, ask yourself, who's there that I can reach out to, and take action. You don't necessarily have to navigate this on your own. I'm going to pass it to you, Nimesh, for grounding. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a beautiful way to end this conversation.
Thank you, Stace. And we didn't talk much about it, but yeah, so powerful. Asking for help is such a powerful strength. And we're programmed to think of it as a weakness, and programming is responsible for so much. And I really do feel like our program is being challenged. But yeah, thank you for that, Stace. And if our voice resonates, please reach out. Book a free discovery call. We can take you through what we do. But I've done a grounding before, I think, on an episode, but it's really a powerful way to to ground yourself. Maybe save this part of the episode, or maybe create your own grounding. But if you're in a position to, then close your eyes, just be present. If you are driving or working, keep doing what you're doing and just concentrate on what you're doing, obviously, but also just try and be open to receive. Close your eyes. Let's take a deep breath in and a breath out. Take another really deep breath in and a breath out. And from here, just imagine you're in a beautiful bubble. The bubble's filled with so much love, so much light. Just feel that light and that love entering you through your crown, which is the top of your head, washing over you like a wave all the way from the top of your head to your feet, going from your crown to your third eye, which is your forehead, to your throat, to your heart, to your stomach, solar, sacral base, to your legs, your feet, your toes, your arms, your hands, your fingers. Feel every part of you being completely filled with this beautiful white light, filled with love, filled with light. Feel that light extending outside of your body and cleansing your aura. Just take a moment just to breathe and feel your center. Feel your power. Accept that you are exactly where you're meant to be. As you breathe in and out, just feel that air. From here, I call in Gaia, Mother Earth. I ask her to ground us, and I ask you to truly feel your connection to Gaia. Imagine you're standing on grass, barefoot, totally connected to Gaia. Feel her energy coursing through you. Feel how held you are. And from here, just release anything that doesn't serve you. Just imagine it all going into the earth. Gaia can take it. Any attachments, any programming, anything that doesn't serve, any emotions that are not yours. Release it all through. Anything you released, I ask for it to be replaced with loving, vibrational energy, filled with love, filled with light. From here, calling our guides, our soul family, any ascended masters, any archangels, any high-level beings, any ancestors, any past lives. I ask you to form a cycle around us. I ask you to magnify your energy, magnify your love. I ask for this space to be protected. I ask for only loving energies and vibrations to be allowed in. I ask for that from now and moving forward. I ask for any messages to be sent with clarity, with ease and grace. I ask you to truly just feel the energy and the vibration around you. Allow yourself to open your heart to truly feel how supported you are. Even if you're not receiving any messages, feel the love. Allow yourself to feel that love. This is a time to accept you are who you are. Commit to falling in love with you. Commit to putting you first. Commit to letting go of that old version of you. Burying him or her. Maybe you want to cremate him or her. Whatever's right for you. But it really is about embracing this version of you. Accepting you are exactly where you're meant to be. Trusting that what's for you will find you and what's not for you will miss you. Accepting that your soul chose to be here and whatever you're going through is part of your journey, part of your soul's journey. And if it is painful, know that you're being expanded. Commit to work on you. Commit to do that healing. Commit to being brave and asking for help if you need it. You're a supreme being. You're a soul that chose to be here, that was handpicked to be part of this ascension. You're needed, you wanted. Stand in your power, it's time. Then from here, just take a deep breath in and a breath out. Take another really deep breath in and a breath out. Just become present in your body, drinking some water if you need it. Thank you for allowing us to guide you on your journey. Thank you for truly opening your hearts up and listening. If you got to this far, then you obviously felt something that resonates with you. If we can help, reach out. We love what we get to do. So sending everyone so much love and light out. And Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you for anything you want to share. How did that feel for you?
It was great. Thank you so much. I needed that today. So, friends, I have been doing readings for people globally for quite some time right now, and I decided that I wanted to offer a special discount. So, if you would like to book a reading with me, a 30-minute reading with me is just $44 with discount code reading44. You can go to my website, stacey-brown.com, and book your session. Again, that discount code is reading44. I look forward to seeing all of you. Thank you for another powerful episode. We're so grateful to every single one of our listeners. We're grateful for the feedback that we receive on a regular basis. And we feel the power of this podcast and the beauty of what we have cultivated here in this space. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Stacey. Sending everyone so much love and light. Embrace this period. Sending you so much love. Bye for now.